Get ready for news and views from Lubbock, Texas, USA. What's going on and real talk with people who move and do things. This is the Focus LBK Show with your host, Robert Jenkins.
Hey, what's good, y'all? Welcome to Season 3, Episode 117 of the Focus LBK Show. This is your host, Robert Jenkins, and I'm going to be talking about a couple of items today, just items of general interest having to do with the COVID vaccines, and also kind of going back and what they say at work, we circling back to a show that we did one or two shows ago where we talked about SNAP benefits, how they discovered that certain states were not willing to report their SNAP benefits to the federal government so that they could do an audit to make sure the right people were receiving those benefits. Before I get into any of that, though, I want to talk about a couple of things coming up. It is nearly Christmas time, so if you have been around Lubbock at all during Christmas time, you no doubt have heard about the Jazzy Christmas concert. We've got the Roots Historical Arts Council, the Lubbock Roots Historical Arts Council, and full transparency, I'm a member of the Lubbock Roots Historical Arts Council. But y'all know who we are. Y'all know what we do. We do jazz concerts, among other things. We have a huge garden over here, puts out hundreds of pounds of food to the community every year. But around this time of year, we do our Jazzy Christmas concert. And I wanted to let y'all know about it because, man, I think it's a real good time. I've been to about three. I think this will be my third one, if I'm not mistaken, because we only been in Lubbock, for about 3 years now. A little over 3 years. So I think this is my third Jazzy Christmas concert. And man, I feel like it's a real good time. You're looking for something to do this December. It's actually Saturday, December 13th. You're looking for something to do in a couple days here on Saturday, December 13th. Y'all got to come and get your tickets. You can hit me up for tickets. You can hit www.selectaseatlubbock.com to get the tickets. I'm gonna put it down here in the show notes. But man, get your tickets to this event because I'm trying to tell you, it is a pretty dope good time. Tickets are $90 a piece. Some people look at that and say, $90? Well, hold on. Let me tell you what you get for that $90. You get dinner and drinks, and there's a raffle contest with some dope stuff in it. Every time I see the raffle table, I look at it, I'm like, man, Miss Cheryl Thomas really does knock that raffle table out the park. There are also included in this year's raffle an art piece. I believe it's jazz themed. I haven't seen it, but I'm told that it looks dope. And you can put in to win for the raffle this original painting by local artist and academic named Jason Gleekus. We featured his work a few weeks ago at the Mahalo art exhibit over at the Cavill Art Museum and art gallery. Well, Jason Gleekus donated a piece to this year's Jazzy Christmas concert. So in addition to dinner, in addition to local wines and drinks, in addition to seeing all your compadres and homeboys and homegirls, in addition to getting a dope raffle where you can win this hand-painted custom jazz piece by Jason Gleekus, you can also then go see a 2-act jazz concert. Usually there's a concert, there's a one half and then an intermission and then another half. You can go see this jazz concert featuring world-renowned saxophonist Thomas Braxton, Chantel Stubblefield Bagley, and also Sheena Fadei Flores. Chantel Stubblefield Bagley and Sheena Fadei Flores, two powerhouse vocalists from the LBK, live right here in the LBK. Thomas Braxton is from the LBK, lives in Dallas, but he looked like every time I look up, he in the LBK, doing something or chilling or hanging out with the Roots crew, doing some kind of concert. We got this thing coming up on Saturday, December 13th. Get your tickets at the link below. Get your tickets from me or any Roots board member, or go online to www.selectaseat.com and get your tickets there. I'm trying to tell you, you want to be there, because if you don't, man, you're going to miss out. You're going to miss out. You're going to have FOMO. Don't have FOMO. You know what FOMO is, don't you? That's what the kids say today. FOMO, fear of missing out. I don't really have fear of missing out because I already got my tickets to go. So Yamo be there, as James Ingram and Michael McDonald would say. Yamo be there. Oh, yo. You got to be old school like me to understand that kind of talk. Yamo be there. Y'all ever listen to that song? I'm getting off track here, but have y'all ever listened to that song? Yamo be there, James Ingram, Michael McDonald. Y'all know that's a gospel song? It was on the top 40 and on the radio and stuff. So you didn't realize it because it was funky. It was Yamo be. You know, Michael McDonald sound like he black. Yamo be there. That's how he sound. But listen to what he's saying. Yahweh will be there. God will be there. Yamo be. And if you listen to the lyrics, he talks about, oh, Heavenly Father, there's something and something. And how times is hard and he needs you. Yamo be there. Anyway, they pulled a smooth move and put a gospel song on the radio. Had you jamming to it in the club. Didn't even know what it was. I don't know. That's the way you do that, though. Tell you what, we ain't going to do like that at the Jazzy Christmas concert. At the Jazzy Christmas concert, we ain't going to try to sneak nothing by you. It's going to be right in your face. Jazz on the stage, cool, smooth jazz, saxophonists, 2 Lubbock sirens just blowing their hearts out. Singing. They be singing, too. Of course. Can't forget Joy Harris, bass lady Joy Harris. She always be there. She be holding it down on the low end, and she be blowing with the 2 other songstresses. Songstresses. It's a good time is what I'm trying to tell you. What I'm trying to told you is you need to be there. So get your tickets. You can get this link down below in the post. You can hit me up. You can hit up any Roots board member. You can go to www.selectaseatlubbock.com. Not just select a seat, selectaseatlubbock.com. You can go to the Civic Center website and get them right there. Man, tickets are available. Be there or be square. I will see you there. All right, Lubbock. It's fun to talk about stuff like the Jazzy Christmas concert. It's not so fun for me. I kind of don't even want to talk about this, man. There's 2 things that I printed out today that caught my attention over the last couple of weeks that I wanted to talk about. The first one, I'm going to revisit this SNAP funds debacle. Y'all know when the SNAP funds was a couple of weeks ago, they was about to get cut off, and then I think they saved them at the last minute and they cut them back on, or they funded them in some kind of way. I think the SNAP funds are flowing. SNAP is food stamps, my understanding, essentially is food stamps. But I talked about a couple of weeks ago how there were 21 states, and oddly enough, they're Democrat-led states, who refuse to turn in their numbers, their statistics on SNAP usage to the federal government. So the federal government requested these statistics from all 50 states, and only roughly half the states complied and turned in their numbers, their books. Open their books to let the government look. Now, keeping in mind, the federal government gives the money to the states for the SNAP. So it seems to me they have a right, unless I don't understand something properly, seems to me they have a right to audit these books, these SNAP accounts, to see, because what had happened is there's hundreds of millions of dollars being fraudulently claimed by people who shouldn't even be getting SNAP. So clearly that's what the federal government is trying to look at and see who shouldn't be getting SNAP and who should be getting it. And let's cut it off to the ones that shouldn't get it and cut it on and keep it on to the ones that should get it. And I think they're revamping the qualifications for SNAP too. And I feel like that's a good thing. I don't mean to be a Grinch, and I don't mean to be mean, and I ain't trying to be. No, the reason I think it's a good thing is because ultimately getting SNAP benefits and getting them fraudulently for long periods of time. I know people that have been on SNAP almost my whole adult life, my whole adult life. They have never gotten off of it. I know generations of people that have been on SNAP. And it destroys work ethic. It destroys you as a person to be provided for. To not get out there, like my pops used to say, and scratch for the scratch, like everybody else. If you ain't out there scratching for your scratch, and you just getting it for decades, in some cases, that destroys something inside of you that makes you human. I feel like you lose an important piece of your humanity when you don't work for your bread. You see what I'm saying? And that's why I oppose it. Also, because as you can tell, y'all might not know, man, but prices are high, inflation is high. Inflation is an indicator of how much money the government has been printing. And it's not the government, really, it's the Federal Reserve. How much money the Federal Reserve has been printing. Y'all remember in COVID when they shut everything down and told half the people in the country, y'all ain't got to work, just stay home. Mainly it was the laptop class, that people that could work from home and people that could stay home and stuff like that. I'm a cameraman. When COVID happened, I was still busy. I was running around doing live streams and stuff because everybody was scared to join up together and meet together. So we was doing live streams and Zoom meetings. I stayed working during COVID, never stopped. I think about some people I know, like my daughter, stayed working during COVID. She wasn't able. She was working for Amazon. She didn't get to chill at the crib and work on her laptop. She was out there scratching for the scratch. But half the country probably was at home or not working, or shops closed down. Everything is closed. Well, and then they sent out stimulus checks. So you see there was no production because half of the businesses in the country was not working, or was working shorthanded, or working some kind of modified schedule. So there wasn't no actual economic output. The only output was coming from money being printed by the Federal Reserve. And as I covered last time, and there's a whole book on this, very easy to read and very entertaining, actually, The Creature from Jekyll Island. But when the federal government prints money like that, that is how you get inflation. So if you mad about houses costing a lot today, well, look back to all this inflation, all these programs that we've been funding by printing money over the last 40 years or more, 60 years, 100 years even. The dollar has lost its purchase. It's not that prices have gone up. It's that the dollar has lost its purchasing power because the Federal Reserve is printing more and more dollars. The more dollars you have in circulation, the less each one is worth if there is no corresponding output in production. So in other words, what I'm saying is, like, if people are working hard in the factories and putting out cars and refrigerators and making stuff in Silicon Valley, and movies are being produced, and people are working hard and making money and buying stuff, prices should not go up then, because the Federal Reserve shouldn't be printing any money unless it's still printing tons of money for war, or unless it's still printing tons of money for these social programs. When the Federal Reserve prints money, you get inflation. The more money it prints, the more inflation you get. And my understanding is the more money it prints, the money is going up like this. It's printing more and more money, but people ain't working. So production is actually going down. That worsens, that makes it inflation even that much worse, and that much harder of a punch to the gut. So that's why I'm opposed to SNAP, because in the long run, it dehumanizes people and it makes everybody's life harder because it creates inflation. So I wanted to get into this article real quick. The USDA will withhold SNAP funds from the 21 states that refused to provide data. And I say, you know what? Good. That's what they get. When I don't like the federal government, I don't really like government at all. I wish to have as little as possible to do with being ruled over. But if you're going to have government, and if we in this society say that the Civil War settled the matter, that the federal government is supreme over the states, which I don't think that's a good way to settle things, by fighting whoever wins the war, you won. That still don't mean you're right. But anyway, if we're going to say that, if we're going to say the federal government has supremacy, then when the federal government from the USDA on down or on up ask you for some, and it's just statistics, man, ask you for some statistics on who's using their money, and it's not their money, it's our money, but for the sake of the article, the federal government's money. The government doesn't have money. We make money. Government doesn't have power. We give it power. It doesn't have anything of its own that actually belongs to it. But if you're going to say that the federal government is supreme, when they ask you for your SNAP analyses, your data, so they can analyze it and make sure nobody's cheating and getting something they shouldn't be getting, there's people double dipping. Y'all know, everybody in Lubbock and everybody that's listening to this, everybody under the sound of my voice knows that there are people out there who game the system and purposely cheat and take advantage of the system. But so if you're not going to give the federal government the statistics they asked for, the federal government said, bam, all right, cool. Then we just cut off your funds. How about that? How about you don't get no SNAP money? I'm all for that. To get into the article, the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, says that she will be moving to stop federal funding to 21 non-compliant states that have refused to provide data from the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP. Goes on to say that the Trump administration asked all states to provide their SNAP data to the federal government as part of the administration's effort to root out fraud, waste, and abuse. They say root out waste and fraud, but when I was in the military, our program was called fraud, waste, and abuse. So that's what we called it. Anyway, 29 mostly Republican-led states provided the data and revealed just out of those 29 states that actually gave them the data, there's 500,000 cases of duplicate benefits. People getting double dipping in the SNAP. And like I said, if you double dipping in the SNAP, you know you double dipping. You know you getting twice as much as you're supposed to. There was 186,000, almost 200,000 dead people getting whose social security numbers were still drawing SNAP benefits. You know that the people that know, the people that's getting those benefits know those people are dead. That's probably somebody mamas and grandmamas and stuff like that. They know them people dead and they still getting that money, but they won't provide the data on it. That information just comes from the Republican states that have provided the data. There's still 21 states that haven't provided the data. And that's why Rollins, the Secretary of SNAP or whatever, said, hey, okay, you don't want to give us the data we need to get this thing running right. How about that? You just don't get no money. And I'm down with that. I'm down. Secretary Rollins told reporters that if a state refuses to share data on criminal use of SNAP benefits, it won't get $1 of federal SNAP administrative funding. Okay, good. Rollins said that cooperation is needed from all states in order to root out fraud in the SNAP program, and that action is impending for those states that refuse to provide names and immigration status of said recipients. Now, see, this is the problem. You have one party, Democrats, they all for illegal immigration. It's not illegal immigration. It's people illegally being in the country. And there's the administration is saying, we don't want to do it. We're done doing that. Let us look at the SNAP data. And they're like, nope, can't let you look at the SNAP data. See, this is the thing. When you have these programs like this in government, this is one of the reasons I've seen this my whole life, and I've worked in the military and other forms of government. And so I've seen that people game the system. The way you pay your cronies that help get you in the office is you give them SNAP benefits in their state so that they can usher in, for example, hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens. And then when you have those illegal aliens in your state or in your city, that raises the state population, which directly gives you more representatives, state representatives. That number, the state representatives are determined by how many people you have in your population. Doesn't say they have to be citizens. That's why the last census, as I understand it, was completely fraudulent with the numbers because they counted huge numbers of illegal aliens that boosted those states that allow that, boosted their numbers of representatives in the House of Representatives, and it also they pay those people back and they pay those states back by not auditing their federal systems so that they can give out money to the people. It could be illegal aliens themselves getting all this money. And y'all have heard the stories. I'm not making it up. It's $5,000 a month debit cards in New York and free stays in hotels because they don't have the housing there. That kind of stuff. That's how you pay people off politically. It's called graft. It's called corruption, whatever you want to call it. This is done. And I'm sure Republicans do the same thing. That's why I'm not down with either party. That's why I'm down for strict accountability on stuff, and that's why I'm a libertarian. I don't. Government just never seems to be the solution. I always like to see regular people doing stuff, and that's when regular people make up their mind to do stuff. That's when you seem to get stuff done with results that last. So anyway, I think that's what they get. I hope they take all their SNAP funding. I hope, what's her name? Susan Rollins or whatever her name was. I hope they take all they SNAP funds. Brooke Rollins, that's her name. U.S. Secretary of Agriculture, who is over the USDA, over the SNAP program. Yeah, I hope they take all of them. If you ain't complying, that second of all, too, man, are you going to have a government or not? If you want a government and they say you're going to do that, then you need to provide the information to them. If not, then I say let's do away with government. Let's pare government in general back as much as we can. That's what I say, but I'm crazy. I'm just a libertarian. You know, I think humans can do what they need to do to support themselves. And I think they ought to do it. But hey, what do I know? Good for them though. Take all their money. I wish the federal government would stop taking tax money from the states anyway. I wish these programs could be handled at a state level, but things that are closer to the individual are easier to keep control over, theoretically at least. They're easier to monitor and easier to exercise the authority of we the people over when it's right down the street, when it's local government and state government. The further and further away it gets and the more and more powerful it gets, the less and less you can do about it. Anyway, enough on that. The other thing I wanted to get into today is about the COVID shots. If y'all have listened to this show, you know I basically got pushed out of the best job I ever had in my life. I'm talking about a dream job where the salary is ridiculously high, where the responsibilities completely align with the stuff you like to do. I'm talking about, I was getting paid mad loot. Give me the loot. That Biggie Small song. I'm making mad moolah on the East Coast out there to do what I do every day, all day anyway, which is slaying these cameras around. I'm talking about 3 or 4 times what you gonna make anywhere else. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, it's high on the East Coast, so you need to make a lot of money just to be there. But I'm talking, man, I had plans. We was making, I'm trying to tell you, we was going to buy a house in cash. I was going to buy an island. No, I wasn't going to buy an island. I'm just joking. I wish I could buy an island. If I could buy an island, man, I'd be on it right now. I wouldn't even be talking to y'all. So because of that the government severe overreaction by government to COVID, my plans and future was just squashed like a bug. So I got no love for these cats. And turns out that the people who were warning about vaccines and saying, hold up, were right. The people that were saying, go, take them now, get fired, were completely wrong on every point and have never been held to account until now. That's why you see people getting mad and they want to talk about Robert F. Kennedy being in health and Secretary of Health and Human Services. They want to talk about how he's down with Trump and they crazy and they undoing science and stuff. No, there never was any science behind any of this stuff. It's more of a religious doctrine as far as I can tell. Belief in vaccines and their efficacy. I don't really want to get into it because I really don't want to talk to y'all about this, but I feel it's important. So I'm going to go on and cover this article. But the FDA's profound revelation: COVID shots killed at least 10 children. Stronger vax rules coming. Now, before we go any further, you're going to say 10 children? That what? Okay, here's the problem. Why 10 children is a huge problem. Yes, first of all, that's going to be, and then I'll get into the article, that's an extreme undercount of the likely true number. But the real problem is not that it's 10 children, that's so few that were killed directly by the COVID vaccine. The real problem is this. One of the things they never talk about when it comes down to vaccines is risk-benefit analysis. Y'all heard of that before? It's a pretty simple idea. You look at the risk and you look at the benefit and you see if the risk outweighs the benefit or if the benefit outweighs the risk. If the risk outweighs the benefit on something, you shouldn't do it because it's just, there's more of a chance of you getting hurt or taking some kind of negative consequence, the risk, than there is a benefit. If the benefit outweighs the risk, then clearly you might make the decision with whatever it is to do so, to do whatever action you're looking at. The problem with the COVID vaccine, and this was known from day one, first of all, when it comes down to regular healthy kids, they were at almost zero risk from having any kind of serious outcomes or events with COVID. In fact, I've seen many people echo the statistic that in the real world, as close to 0 kids died from COVID as you can possibly get in the real world. It's like 0 point something, 1, 2, 3 kids, healthy, regular kids died from COVID. So COVID, the disease, posed almost no risk to children. And this was not, like I say, this is not something that we discovered later. This was already known. There's other hemispheres on the planet. When you look at countries like Israel and all of Sweden, their data clearly showed that children are not at risk from COVID. So we knew this before we even locked down. We knew this before the vaccines came out. I say we, they knew this. They knew that children were at, for all intents and purposes, healthy children were at zero risk from getting sick from COVID, or they might get a little sniffles. It's going to be the flu. In fact, it was basically the flu for everybody. COVID was rough on older people and people that had serious comorbidities. In fact, as I understand it, something like 40% of all COVID deaths were people over the age of, I think it was 72, 40% in this country. Something like 40% of all the people that I'm going top of my head. So don't say he lying if the statistic is wrong. I don't have that article or that stat right in front of me, but it's something I've been studying for these 5 years. And I'm not a doctor. Don't take none of this as medical advice. I'm just a dude that know how to read and do read. I do read. And you know why I read? Because if you don't read, the man or woman who doesn't read is functionally no different from a man or woman who cannot read. So in other words, if you can read, but you just don't, then you might as well be illiterate because you just don't read. Either case, you don't read. Illiterate people don't read because they can't. And you don't read because you choose not to, then you're basically illiterate. For all intents and purposes, you are illiterate if you don't read. I do read, and I always have. And that's one of the reasons why I wasn't down with taking none of these shots. Because I'm not a doctor, but I know how to find doctors that talk about the other side of the equation. Because on TV, all they tell you about is the benefits. They never talk about the risk. In other words, they never do true risk-benefit analysis. And it was known, like I say, very early on in COVID, that healthy kids don't really get affected by COVID, the disease, the COVID-19, COVID, whatever. They don't really get sick from it. So now you begin to understand why 10 kids dying directly from the COVID shot, and that 10 is an extreme understatement. But that's the ones that they looked at 96 cases and they found 96 that probably died from it. But 10 of those 96, 10 definitely died from the vaccine. So what that means is we killed 10 kids, they killed 10 kids for no reason who had almost no risk of dying from COVID. Again, the number of deaths attributed to healthy kids from COVID is almost zero. It's 0.00 something. In the real world, that's zero. You can't get true zero in the real world because the real world is messy. Freedom is messy. Everything is messy in real life. Real life ain't cut and dry. But 0.0 something percent of kids that died from COVID versus 10 actual kids who definitely died from COVID. From the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, not from COVID, the COVID vaccine. 0 kids that we can find that died, healthy kids that died from the COVID disease. 10 kids who died from the COVID shot. See that risk benefit? There is no benefit. In other words, what I'm saying, we're talking about risk benefit analysis. There is no benefit for kids for the COVID vaccine. There is no benefit to taking it. That doesn't even get into myocarditis, which is swelling of your freaking heart. That was a known side effect of the COVID vaccine for kids, mostly affected young males between the ages of like 15 and 30 or something like that. So you're a young male. You're not going to die of COVID, but you have a great chance of being harmed by the vaccine, including killed, or if not, heart swelling. And they had the nerve back in the day. I remember I watched all this and I recorded it and I got videos. I got receipts. They were talking about, well, it's just mild heart swelling. Mild heart swelling. There's no such thing. Your heart is the one muscle that must beat every second or whatever it is to keep your butt alive. Talking about you got mild heart damage. There ain't no mild heart damage. But that if you're not doing risk benefit analysis, then you're not thinking properly about these medical interventions. Vaccines are medical interventions. It's just like surgery. You're putting a potentially deadly toxin into your body. In the case of these 10 kids, that was. Now, I want to get onto this. I want to dig a little deeper into this to show you how unprecedented and weird this stuff is. So we know that the COVID vaccine is one of the most deadly. It's the most deadly vaccine in history. If you look at the vaccine adverse event reporting system, VAERS, the thousands of deaths attributed to the COVID vaccine are more than all other vaccines combined for the last 30 years. There's more deaths from the COVID vaccines and more injury and more serious life-altering consequences from taking the COVID vaccine than there are for all other vaccines combined for the last 30 years. It's the most dangerous vaccine by far that we've ever had. And that it includes the HPV vaccine. That was a super dangerous vaccine. My understanding. Again, I'm not a doctor. What am I? I'm a videographer. Okay. But I've also been an intelligence analyst. I know how to read and collate data and think about it and write about it. I also know to consult, to always get the other side of the story. That's the main thing that I know. Don't just listen to TV. TV tell you, y'all seen this, everybody's seen this, you see on TV, do you have an ingrown toenail? Well, come buy a Brexil V. Get a prescription for a Brexil V. It'll stop your ingrown toenail. And then the fine print at the bottom might cause your head to fall off, could cause your brain to catch on fire, might have flaming hemorrhoids for the rest of your life. All in the fine print, and they say it real fast. And have it on the bottom of the screen so little you can't even see it. You know what I'm saying? But they want you to. So you looking at the risk benefit analysis on that, everybody can see it. Be like, man, hold up. I ain't finna take something that could give me AIDS of the small intestine when all I got is an ingrown toenail. I think I'll pass on that. You know what I'm saying? Well, how about a young man, football player somewhere in one of these, in the great state of Texas, who has basically a zero risk from COVID, the disease, but the school is saying it's mandatory to get a COVID shot, which could cause minor so-called heart swelling, or death, or all kind of stuff, paralysis. That's risk-benefit analysis. If you have zero or low risk from something, you should not get a vaccine for it. Perhaps you should think twice about getting a vaccine for it if the vaccine has known side effects, up to and including death and heart swelling and stuff like that. Now, here's the thing. They don't tell you about the death and the heart swelling on TV. So I'm just talking about risk-benefit analysis. Let's look at this article right here. It say, the FDA's profound revelation, COVID shots killed at least 10 children. Oh, I wanted to tell you this. This 10 children, I'll tell you after. I'll put that in context after. The Food and Drug Administration's top overseer of vaccine policy on Friday told employees that at least 10 American children died after and because of receiving, quote, a COVID-19 vaccine. Dr. Vinay Prasad, director of the FDA's vaccine division, also committed to implementing changes to the FDA's evaluation of vaccine efficacy and safety and encouraged dissenting employees to find a new job. In other words, they're doing actual science now. They're doing actual studies. This stuff was known. Let's see. This is a profound revelation. For the first time, the FDA will acknowledge that the COVID-19 vaccines have killed American children. He said the conclusion about children dying from COVID-19 vaccines was reached after he and other staffers, get this, undertook a multi-month detailed analysis of deaths voluntarily reported to the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, also called VAERS. Get this, the effort focused on 96 deaths that occurred between 2021 and 2024 and said no fewer than 10 of them were caused by the vaccines. If anything, this represents a conservative coding where vaccines are exculpated rather than indicated in cases of ambiguity. So in other words, if they were a little bit unsure, they didn't count it as a vaccine-caused death. If there was any wiggle room, they discarded it. They only included the 10 because they were definitely sure they were caused by the vaccine. And he goes on to say the real number is higher. And he goes on, it's horrifying to consider that the U.S. vaccine regulation, including our actions, may have harmed more children than we saved. Get that, our actions may have harmed more children than we saved. This requires humility and introspection. He goes on, Vinay Prasad, who is a hematologist, oncologist, and former Cal San Francisco professor. He is the nation's top vaccine regulator, Dr. Vinay Prasad. Prasad slammed the coercive nature of policies that insisted on COVID shots for children. Quote, healthy young children who face tremendously low risk of death were coerced at the behest of the Biden administration via school and work mandates to receive a vaccine that could result in death. In many cases, such mandates were harmful. It is difficult to read cases where kids aged 7 to 16 may be dead as a result of COVID vaccines. FDA, he goes on, has never requested the manufacturers demonstrate in randomized fashion that vaccinating children improves outcome. You see that? I'm going to read that again. The FDA has never even requested that vaccine manufacturers demonstrate in randomized controlled trials that vaccinating children improves outcomes. This goes back to a larger issue with vaccines. When you look at Del Bigtree on the High Wire, and many others have pointed this out, but they did the groundbreaking legal work on it. They asked the federal government, hey, you keep saying vaccines don't cause autism. Please send us the studies that show that. They asked them nicely. The organization is called ICANN. I think it's called Informed Consent Action Network. They asked the federal government, the FDA, the National Institutes of Health, the CDC, everybody said, hey, send us the studies that you did that show vaccines don't cause autism. Well, guess what? They had no studies. They sent them 16 studies that had nothing to do with the question. And what they were really asked, the real question, the way they worded it is very important. In this Freedom of Information Act request, they said, please send us any studies concerning the vaccines on the childhood vaccination schedule that show that these vaccines on the childhood vaccination schedule, the mandatory vaccines you have to get to go to school, please send us any studies that you have that show that they did randomized controlled trials that show that vaccines don't cause autism. So a randomized controlled trial, in case you don't know, is, everybody knows what this is once I explain it. It's when you have a group of people and you're going to do a test and you divide them in half. And over here, you give one group the vaccine or the medication or whatever it is. And over here, you just give a placebo and you give it to them, sugar pill or whatever, something that doesn't harm you. And then you compare the results. But here's the thing. Randomized controlled trials, double blind is the gold standard for science. Double blind means the patients nor the doctors in the study, nobody in the study knows who got what. So nobody in the study knows if they got the actual medicine or if they got the sugar tablet or the actual vaccine or the sugar tablet. What they discovered in this court case, because they had to sue the government, basically, Del Bigtree and ICANN, they had to sue the government because the government wouldn't give them the studies. They just, for a couple years, I think it was, they just disregarded them and would not provide the studies. So they sued them, took them to court and won because you got to send us the studies. And then that's when the federal government sent them 16 studies that had nothing to do with the request. And basically, that's the federal government admitting that there are no studies. There are no randomized, controlled, double-blind studies that show that the vaccines on the childhood vaccination schedule don't cause autism. So when I go back to this report, and he says the FDA has never requested the manufacturers demonstrate in randomized fashion, that's the randomized control studies, that vaccinating children improves outcomes. They have not done safety studies, folks. Or they do weird, half-hearted, unfair, biased safety studies where they give you a vaccine and look at you for 5 days, but they don't have they don't have a placebo. So they can't tell what happens if they don't give you the thing. They just give you a certain group that, and then look at that. There's no placebo. You can't tell what the baseline is. That's not science. And that the federal government, none of these vaccine manufacturers do those studies. Why? Because they have immunity. These vaccine manufacturers can't be sued. No matter how bad their products hurt you, up to and including killing you, you can't sue them. They have liability. Yeah. Crazy, huh? Look at this. I'm going to read that same paragraph again and I'm going to finish it up. It says, the FDA has never requested that the manufacturers demonstrate in randomized fashion that vaccinating children improves outcomes. The available randomized data in children is deeply limited and broadly negative for symptomatic infection, as discussed in prior AdComs. That's the advisory committees vaccine advisory committees. Furthermore, get this, COVID-19 was never highly lethal for children, and now MIS-C, multi-system inflammatory system in children, has decreased drastically, and the harms to kid are comparable to many respiratory viruses for which we do not provide annual immunization. So in other words, COVID is the flu. It's the flu, bro, for kids. Some people, older people, people with comorbidities, it's not the flu. It can be rough. It can cause death. Now, I wanted to talk specifically about that number 10. I'm going from memory here, but in 1976 or so, there was a nationwide vaccination program for the swine flu. It was on 60 Minutes and all that. I'll try to show you I'll try to put the links down there, 60 Minutes swine flu show. In those days, in 76, back when I guess people had a little more integrity or something and were a little more concerned about true health instead of politics, that dang swine flu vaccine that they rolled out and vaccinated millions of people with, they stopped that whole vaccine and put an end to vaccinating people with it because I think it was there 24 cases in the whole nation of people that got paralyzed by it or had other serious side effects. So after 24 people were noticed to have serious side effects from the swine flu, they stopped that whole vaccine. COVID is the most deadly vaccine and the most dangerous vaccine in history. As I said, it has killed or maimed more than all other vaccines combined for the last 30 years. And they haven't stopped that program yet. It killed 10 kids, definitely, according to the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. According to the Food and Drug Administration, COVID shots have killed at least 10 kids, probably many, many, many more. And we still haven't stopped that. But in 1976, when they found 24 people were partially paralyzed or killed by the swine flu shot, they immediately halted that program. And you have to ask, what has changed from 1976 or whatever it was? I think it was 76. What has changed from then till now? Good question. But now you know. Oh, and I just want to throw some. I saw an article the other day talking about vaccines. I think the number of healthcare professionals who are getting the COVID shots this year has dramatically plummeted. It's like less than 20% of people that work in hospitals are getting the COVID shot this year. Imagine that. People that work in healthcare don't get the COVID shot. I wonder why. I wonder what they've seen. Anyway, I hate to talk about that, honestly, LBK, because really, I'm just tired. I already know what me and mine gonna do, and I ain't trying to tell you what you and yours should do. So that's why I really don't want to talk about it. But I do feel kind of compelled to mention that the COVID shot is more deadly for children than COVID, and that was known since day one, pretty much. But now, looking back over the statistics and the data that was known under Biden, they realized, dude, this data is staring us in the face. There's no reason to vaccinate kids for COVID. And then think about that next time you see a high school football player fall dead on the field with a heart attack or fibrillations and stuff like that, heart fibrillations, stuff like that. It's just tragic. Anyway, LBK, this is Robert Jenkins getting ready to sign off for the Focus LBK show. This is season 3, episode 117. Y'all take it easy. I hope to see you at that Jazzy Christmas concert so we can get some Yano sweet red wine and watch Tom Braxton and them get up on the stage and just blow their hearts out, playing us some of that smooth jazz. All right, y'all. Y'all take it easy, and we'll see y'all at the Jazzy Christmas concert. All right, peace.